All right, so I'm Kylene. For those of you who don't know me, I have 4 little people that come to Gathering Oaks. Alex is my baby. He's 4, so he's going to be a Sprout this year. He's super excited to be with the big kids.
Cute.
I know. So he was born into our community.
He was.
He was. I have Mary Catherine, who she will cartwheel everywhere she goes. She's 7. She's just a bundle of joy and full of life. And then there's Deva, who's about the sweetest thing. She's 8 years old. And then Thomas, who is my oldest. And I talk about him. He's so funny because the older he gets, the more I'm like, oh my goodness, he is like my mini me. He doesn't look like me. He looks like his dad. He acts just like his mom. So that's been fun. He turned 10 yesterday, so he's 10 years old. I'm entering my 6th year of homeschooling, all with elementary students. So Thomas will be in 5th grade this year, which is crazy to me, but started this journey with him in kindergarten. So we started with classical, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about classical education and how we implement that here, specifically through the Greenwood. This afternoon, we have breakout sessions. Oh, yes. Oh, I'm sorry, the camera.
Do you know how to do this?
I think you just hit this arrow.
Okay.
When the first video.
So this afternoon, there are going to be breakout sessions, and Ginny's going to talk more specifically about classical education. If you're interested in knowing some more details, I'm just going to kind of highlight a little bit of it. So I have a little memory activity for you guys. I'm going to say the first line of a jingle, and I want you to say it back to me. So give me a break.
Kit Kat.
Yeah, Kit Kat bar, yeah. Juicy fruit is gonna move ya.
Juicy fruit, it gets right to you.
Yep. There you go.
I didn't know that one.
This should be easier. Sunny day, sweeping the. That's right. 3 times 4.
Well.
Very good. Very good. Yep, I'm switching it up on you. I had my son this morning. He was like, "What are you videoing for?" I'm like, "Don't you worry about it." So this is him first thing. Oh, I don't know if it's gonna show up on the computer. Hold on. It's on this. It's on the screen, but it's not. I mean, it's on this screen. If I have to turn it around, I will.
Exit.
I know. It's all right. It's okay. If you guys can hear it, or Nate can. Come on, Nate. You got it. There it is. There it is. All right. Here we go. So here is Thomas, my 10-year-old. First thing this morning. Here we go.
Okay, Thomas. Like a good neighbor. How about this? These are also Proverbs
of Solomon.
You can do more. Just say a little bit more.
It's a man of king of Judah conquered us.
There. Can you divide parts of the sentence?
A capital letter, subject, verbs, completes, and so. I'm not saying
Matter is made of atoms.
Takes up space and has there. Done.
That is awesome.
So I didn't exasperate him anymore with his with
The
this
rolling
statement.
of the eyes.
I know, it was perfect, right? Like, there you go. So that's, I mean, memorization, right? Repetitive things that you hear over and over and over again is what the first stage of classical education is all about. And it's hard sometimes because we don't want to repeat things over and over again. I know that I don't want to repeat directions to my children over and over again every day, but sometimes you just have to do it. I'm not an expert on classical education. The few things I know I've learned from a book or reading an article or observation or talking to a friend about it. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on classical education at all. It is rooted in like ancient teaching techniques, but also now with a modern canon, you would say. There are 3 stages in classical education. You have the grammar stage, which is what Greenwood focuses on. You have the dialectic or logic stage, which is where we kind of start to move in with like the Grove and the Orchard Junior and like 7th grade. It's not real clear defined lines. Each student is a little bit different, and so you can start to see those stages sort of overlap and intermix with one another. And then rhetoric is where you can clearly explain the grammar and the logic and start to teach other people. And even as adults, we do this as we learn new things. Grammar is about definitions and vocabulary and kind of the the basics, the foundation of what you're going to be learning. So if you start a new job, you have to learn the language of that job and to understand what people are talking about. And so this is really about learning the common language of the skill or the subject that you're going to be diving into. So the Oxford English Dictionary defines grammar as the fundamental principles or rules of an art and science. And so we really are going to focus in on different arts and sciences and subjects in this grammar phase. It's about memorization, specifically memorization through repetition. As I was preparing for this session, I did some more reading and research into memorization, specifically for educational purposes, and I came away with a few highlights. Memorization is natural for your kids. They already repeat things over and over again. Who has an example of something that your child likes
Oh
to
my
do?
gosh, they watch a movie and they can quote every line of the movie.
Right.
I'm just like, they want to watch it over and over and over again.
Right.
It drives me insane.
Yeah, any other examples? Any of you have people who play instruments? Do they play different songs all the time, or do they play the same song over and over until you're like, you cannot play anymore today? We're all done with that. What's interesting, again, through my reading, many music teachers require repetitive practice for basic skills like scales and chords, but also simpler bodies of music. So like they'll learn a simple song and then they'll get a little bit more, and then as they grow in their repertoire, things just become easier for them to read and to sit down at the piano or play the violin and just pick up the music and play. Repetition moves information to your long-term memory. So how many of you took a test in college and then like immediately were able to like dump that information out of your brain, never to recall it again? I mean, I made really, really great grades in college, and I don't know anything about meteorology or oceanography. So it just is, it's that repetition over and over again. You'll see in your guides, like we go through 4 cycles in our Claritas. And part of that is if you start in kindergarten, preschool, you'll hit all of those cycles 2 times if you stick with the program. And so part of that is that repetition over and over and over again. And then memorization allows for higher learning. If you're not spending all of your time like trying to figure out the fact, you just recall it and then you can apply it. So think about your kid learning their multiplication tables, right? If they can recall that multiplication table, it's going to be much easier for them to do the algebra or the geometry because they're not spending their time trying to figure out what is 3 times 4. They already have that information stored in their brain. So what do we memorize? I'm going to show you our guide here. This is Cycle 4, the Claritas guide. You are required in the Greenwood to purchase either a guide or have a subscription to Cross 7, which is, yeah, I'm going to hit that. Have a subscription to Cross 7. Cross 7 is $14.99 a month. If you are on a Cross 7 subscription and you need to change cycles, you just email her. Her name is Laura. I think it's up at the top. Do you have a question regarding your subscription? Email Laura, and she can just say like, I was in cycle 3, I need to be moved to cycle 4. And so you either need this or this, and that's for copyright reasons, and we want to honor that and honor the work that they've done. Claritas, like I said, is broken into 4 cycles. In your folder, there is an overview of the 4 cycles. That looks like this. Realized in talking to some parents this year that we made an oversight of not passing this out to everybody in the beginning. It's very helpful to see what subjects are going to be hit and what the content for each of those subjects are in particular. So like you'll see that every year science, the focus of science changes. So this past year we focused on chemistry, and then this next year we'll focus on physics, and then cycle 1 we'll go to biology, and round we go. So this is just helpful, again, even for you, for planning purposes, to know what subjects or what topics are going to be hit on for your particular students.
And what cycle are we on?
We are going into cycle 4.
And it's new for everyone. None of us have done
I
cycle 4.
was just making sure.
I said it's new for everyone. We've never done a cycle 4. So, yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yep. So for 28 weeks, your child will learn a series of facts, and our hope is that they don't just hear it on Monday, but that you can somehow incorporate memory work into your work at home, so you can start with that repetition. If you only do it on Monday, we're not going to come and like scold you later. But later today, we'll also have a breakout session on the Greenwood specifically and how you can implement some of these things at home. There are 8 strands of memory, and it's laid out really nicely if you haven't seen a guide yet, each week. And so almost everything we will touch on a Monday. I'm sorry, I keep moving out of the way of the camera. But you have English grammar, math, a science fact, scripture, which our Bible class was one of the rotations. They will focus on the memorization of this particular scripture passage. History, hymns, we don't necessarily focus on this at any point in our community day. So this is something, you can download the hymns off of the Claritas Publishing website. You can get those, you can order those. You can also just like YouTube them if you want to. Maps or geography, and then some Latin also. Latin we use up through which grade, Jenny? 8th grade. So they'll do
the memory work through 6th, and then 7th and 8th we do first form Latin.
So they'll go into Latin into the 8th grade. So those are the different strands. We do memory work, like we said, in our like homeroom classroom. And then we'll focus on science in science class, and then the Bible scripture in their Bible class. And so that is what those 2 classes in particular will focus on. We also have art and music. Art will focus on this time period. The first 7 weeks of art is going to be more about skills, like perspective and shading and things of that nature. And then the second 7 weeks in the spring will focus on artists and their style of art during this particular time period. Yes, Keisha.
Random thought, if you happen to have a middle schooler or high schooler who will not get this information, doing it at home helps them get it. I just know I have one who started kind of late, and he was doing another project with another group and doing speak, and it helped him to, he rattled off something that he didn't get, but he heard it because my other little kids were doing it at home all day, and he was like, oh, that's, so it is helpful to do it at home, especially if you got little kids that are coming in late and you want to still
Get some of this, yeah. Oh, and I forgot timeline. Timeline's at the top also. And so there's they can learn the whole timeline of the world. What? I know. We're really hopeful that we'll have a better song at some point. Really hopeful.
Really
for that.
bothering Jenny.
Yeah.
Are there plans? I've heard from you guys plans great as CC.
Sure. It's specifically for the timeline. Yeah.
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 The
Yes.
music is good enough.
Good enough. Okay.
It really is. You get used to it, and it really is. It's different because it's not as there's not as much variety. But what I have found is memory work is memory work, and the kids don't really care. They latch on, and even if the song is bad, they kind of make fun of it, but they learn it.
Yeah.
So like, I just think it's right, and it's so helpful to have that musical piece of it because it sticks with them forever. So
I like that there's music with every subject
Yes.
too. You know, you don't have to make up.
And it's consistent. I think that's like what we kind of wrestled with. But for us, like particularly using the Cross 7, like that's all my kids use, and it's consistent across the board. Like all our kids are going to hear the same thing, which is really helpful, I think.
So it's funny, like I had Thomas sing like the 5 parts of a sentence, and it's this real country like twangy thing. But in Grove Junior, we start talking about what are the 5 parts of a sentence, and I have them do like fixing sentences, and that's the 3rd grade writing program. And so even you start to see them using some of the things that they're memorizing. And again, that's the challenge, right? Because oh my goodness, I mean, some of the science facts, like Kayla can talk about that with us, like. Teaching a 5-year-old like the first law of thermodynamics is really challenging, right? So we try to make a fun experiment to show them that like this is an this works. This is, you see science and the world around you, and God is in everything, and He's made this world to work together. And so we don't necessarily focus on it. You need to know what thermodynamics is, 5-year-old. But we do want to show them how that science can be fun and interesting, and they want to learn and grasp onto that. I mean, I think there were several science experiments last year with chemistry that, I mean, even I was like, again, being a lead learner, right? Like at home, writing my notes in my notebook, like how do I teach this, and learning in the process all along.
I want to say just one other quick
Yeah.
thing. So I have twin 11-year-olds. They are severely delayed, and particularly language. Their brains are just not wired exactly the right way, and they really have struggled. One of them particularly, Johnny, and he really still struggles with adding. Like if you say 2 + 1, the kid like has to like look at his number line. It's really hard for him. He can't in his head, for whatever reason, be like 2 + 1 is. He just struggles. So we just kind of keep pushing forward, and his math curriculum got to multiplication this year, and the kid knows every multiplication fact. And I was like, what is going on? Like he's doing like 3 number multiplication facts, and it's only because he memorized it through this. And I'm just like, what in the world? I was shocked by it. You can't add 2 + 1, but the kid can do multiplication. So I mean, it really does work. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, so that's the multiplication. Like we do skip counting is usually the first thing in math. I think we do skip counting. I'm not looking at my sheet every year.
Yep.
Yeah, so math starts with skip counting every single year. So hopefully that
Yeah,
is
so you get
helpful.
that like 8 years.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
probably why.
Yes, Kimberly.
For my kids, the songs don't always work. I think because my kids are very musical, so for them it's like jarring. So I found that getting those skip counting songs sometimes through YouTube has worked a lot better for them. There's even science songs on YouTube for some of the concepts. So if you guys have kids like mine that just doesn't work for them, YouTube can help. They do have songs. Not for everything, but for some of the subjects.
What was the age group for the Greenwood?
The Greenwood is our pre-K 4 through 5th grade. And then our 6th grade students move into Orchard Junior, but they still do the memory work portion, not as heavily, but it's still part of their.
It's like a hybrid.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a hybrid, trying to get them prepared to go into the middle school curriculum.
That's Grove Junior,
That's
sixth grade.
Orchard Junior.
Yeah.
Orchard Junior, sixth grade.
Yep.
And I think Kimberly makes a good point in that not everybody's going to do it differently at home. Like there's not a right or wrong way to do the memory work or to do homeschooling, on your own. Like we find the ways that work for our kids. Like even within my children, they all learn differently, and you have to find the things that work for your students.
Yep.
Yeah. We're just trying to give you the tools to do that, and then you have to decide how it works for your family.
Which kind of brings me into what are they doing in their memory work and presentation time, right? So one of the things we want to focus on is like the presenting of items. We have a list at the beginning of the year for topics that they can talk about. It's kind of like a show and tell of sorts. Sometimes there's a topic you may want to dive into at home, like a country that we're talking about in geography, and you want them to learn a little bit more about this country. So they can present those items or those things to their class, and we start that as young as 4. And that's just a skill. We were watching the IEW videos last week, the writing videos, and he even talked again about the benefit of presenting to your peer group for kids. It just helps. Even if your kid is the most introvert, we are never going to force a child to stand up and talk. We're not. That's not the purpose or the point. Kim is not here. She went to go pick up our lunch. But yeah, but Ada, her daughter, when she was little, would not go up there. And then slowly she would stand up there with Kim and not say anything, and Kim would do the presentation for Ada, and then Kim would stand up there and Ada would do the presentation herself, and then Kim would sit down behind Ada. So there was a progression, and Ada now is fine. Like she doesn't love public speaking. She's still not a natural person, like extrovert to go up and public speak, but she is confident that she can do that thing. And so that's just one of the ways that we see like doing these presentations is helpful in the long run for the kids. Yes,
I
Mariah.
was gonna add on to that. I know in Bear Cubs this year, my son Easton had a really hard time. I don't know why, because he is a talker. But the idea of actually getting up in front of everybody was really hard for him. And the whole way to school, I'm not doing a presentation. I'm not doing a presentation. But whoever was in there this year always did such a good job of like kind of changing it, like instead of like getting up, doing like an interview where he was at, and eventually he was more comfortable. So it's all, I feel like everybody does a really good thing of like kind of morphing it to better fit the kids.
Yeah, it's true. The memory work goals, Krista hit it, and Kimberly too. Like memory work isn't just songs. Like songs are great. I think again, we kind of did jingles. Marketers know what they're doing, right? Television marketers, radio, they've got that down to a literal science. And so to make you remember what they want you to hear and to remember. And so in a similar way, that's what we're doing in class, is like trying to hit those each fact or subject 5 to 7 times, but in different ways. Like with math, with skip counting, it may not be to the song. It may be that you're roll a dice and there's motions and we march, right? Like, and we say the skip counting to marching. Or the history song, you learn hand motions to go with it. So there's lots of different ways that those teachers are going to show the kids the memory work or present the memory work to them on a Monday. And then the kids will come back to your house and show you the hand motions or not. Most of the time, the kids act like I'm talking a foreign language and they did nothing on Monday. I'm like, I know you did this. And eventually we get there. So that's what's happening on Mondays with the memory work specifically. Each teacher kind of does it a little different as far as like how they show the actual material. Some have boards, some handwrite it on the whiteboard, some print out sheets and put them in little things and kind of paste them up on the wall. But all of the content is the same. So, Lisa, do you want to add anything there with, okay. Yes.
Don't be like me and make up your own hand motions.
Yeah, if you're a
kids,
teacher,
'cause it might mess up.
There are hand motions on Cross 7 for all of the history, science, and what's the other one? Timeline. So those 3 subjects have hand motions on here that you can find, and all of the classes that are, the teaching team will all have those.
Yeah,
signs
so
of
last
those
year
teachers.
we made it where the teachers had to use those hand motions, or no, they didn't have to use the hand motions. But if they were gonna use hand motions, they're gonna do those, just so we're all doing the exact same thing, and like that.
There are lots of resources to incorporate your stuff at home. Cross 7 is one. I'm gonna just click on weekly memory work here. And I'm not not an expert, and we oh goodness, we do different things at, oh my word, it's just taking a long time to load. Okay, so we just do different things kind of based on our season at home for my kids. This is available on Roku, so sometimes if I'm doing math with one child, I will send the others to the other room and say, go listen to your weekly memory work on the Roku. I know they're listening, and sometimes they're playing at the same time, but it's on in the background, they're listening to it. So that's one way you can use that. There are handwriting sheets that you can download from Claritas Publishing. There are examples of that on the table out there. There are map books, there's audio you can download, or you can buy the CDs. There's lots of ways that you can incorporate it. Some people prefer to do it in the car as they're driving from one activity to another. So it just kind of depends on your family and what works for you. There are also different resources to go deeper into these subjects. So you want to follow the Claritas Guide for history or for science. There are ways and resources that that you can use for that. Story of the World, the history facts follow along with the 4 volumes of Story of the World. Now, if anybody knows history, you know that no curriculum is exhaustive. They have gaps, there's different leanings one way or the other, and so I really just encourage you to like embrace that this curriculum is not the end all be all for all of history. And so, but it is a good starting point if you're interested in looking at that. You can do as basic as read the chapter that goes along with this. There's, I did not bring it, but I do have it where it lays out all 4 cycles and which chapters in each volume go with that specific week. So I have that resource if anybody needs it. I can email it or put it on our website. Yes, Mariah.
Is the Cross 7, is that like, I know you said it's on Roku, is it an app or is it something you have to go into?
It's
like,
on a website,
It's an
Okay.
app.
Okay.
So like, oh goodness.
That we can download on our phone and.
If you have the Roku app on your phone, is that I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't have it on my phone,
year,
but
but
you can have it on a tablet or your laptop.
Yeah, yeah.
Or your TV.
I've gone on the website,
Okay.
so you
Okay.
can do it.
Yeah.
I didn't have an app though, but I've just gone on the website.
The Roku has an app.
Firestick does too.
Okay.
I have
Or
Fire
is
Stick.
that the same stuff that's on Dropbox? The weekly?
If you have access to Dropbox, so our teaching team and like our PE team does reviews sometimes, so they have access to the Dropbox.
Oh, okay.
It's
So
not like
everybody
But it's
does.
not gonna be Cross 7.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be
But
like
that's the same song.
the
It's the
songs.
audio
Yeah,
CD.
it's the audio.
I download this audio, or I buy the download and then I upload it onto the Dropbox.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or I had a thought of like videotaping, recording your kids doing the memory song,
Uh-huh.
and then just you can play there
Yeah.
over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Instead of listening to the
Like you give them to buy it. It's not something you should share. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Sorry.
The other thing is they on Cross 7 they have a little like history. Is it at the very top? Yes, at the very tippy top, right up here, and history video for kids. And those are actually pretty cute. It's made for kids by kids, and so they act out the story of what the history sentence is about. It they're usually like 7-ish minutes, and so my kids have enjoyed that. Also, when I'm like I'm like, oh, Story of the World is not happening today or this week, so we're just gonna watch this history video and at least get a little bit of it in there. But be warned, like one of the things was on the opium wars and talking about drugs, and kids were like, what are drugs? I'm like, and we're gonna have this conversation now. So, but it was good. It was a good conversation just to talk to them about that. The science curriculum has an ebook, which is also, I did not grab that, is on the table. We, as the science team, start with the ebook and with each of the different sentences or facts for the week, and then we try to find experiments that will supplement that. Sometimes it's a little bit of a stretch, but it is still, we really try to follow along with that and help the kids understand to the best of their ability and ours how to make that work together. This past year was fun. We did this thing with batteries and making a little tiny light bulb light up with tinfoil, and the kids were really excited about that. And then come to find out that very same day, I think, Rachel was upstairs with the 09 students doing a very similar activity. And so that was really, it was just a cool reminder that the things they're learning in the Greenwood they're gonna circle back around to it when they're in the Orchard program. So that to me was just really helpful and beneficial. So that's all I have today for everybody, but if there are questions, we can do that in the Greenwood. I know it's time for a break.
Yeah.
We can have a
Let me
little
just
break.
do real quick, a couple more of the prizes.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we'll take a quick break.
Okay.